Good evening, Final Fantasy Randomizer fans, and welcome to Race 6 of 9 qualifiers of the SG Live Final Fantasy Randomizer Qualifier. My name's Jack. I'm joined here in the booth by Space Drake. How you doing tonight, Space Drake?
I'm doing pretty good, and I'm on commentary for FFR again for the first time in a while.
Yeah, this has been my first time hopping into the booth for the SG Live qualifiers, but this is a great tournament that's coming up, hosted right here on SpeedGaming, and I'm looking forward to one. So we are featuring two runners on stream here, Elastoid and Darkmoon EX. However, this is actually a race with 20 people, so if you want to stay tuned in that, we will maybe give some updates near the end as our runners finish up on the overall placements. So want to give a little bit of a rundown of the SG Live flags?
Sure. So, with the SGG Live flags, the first and most obvious thing that we have going on here is that this is a party draft, and that means that so our runners can scroll through the available characters here in the draft pool, and then they have to either lock in that choice or just leave it blank. And we only have a certain number of characters available, and it might not even be all the characters that all the character classes that are necessarily in the game. Like right now, we only have fighter, thief, red mage, and black mage available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So. Yeah, Gloomtree's pointing out in chat that thieves are definitely one of the classes that are available, and they've definitely been buffed a little bit here, so they're not too bad. They're going to always be good at running. Fighter's kind of going to be a mainstay. We have an incentivized Masamune, the best sword in the game, as well as a ribbon, so that really makes fighter comps quite strong. Most parties that have been running in this have either been 4-person or 3-person fighter comps, so not really too surprising what we're seeing here. Elastoid, a little bit off the beaten path with only a single black caster. The issue for Elastoid's party will be that getting the buffs onto the fighter if he chooses to dive at a lower level may be a little bit more difficult. But the bright side is that the running's really going to help, and we're not opening a ton of chests here, so the thief and the ability to run through these dungeons as quickly as possible will be valuable. Any other flags that the viewer should be aware of before we get started here in just a minute?
Well, we do have shortened Topher, so the sort of setup for the big slog through Topher is mostly not present here. Like, our runners are building their parties and are going to be leveling and whatnot with an eye towards just killing chaos. You might almost call it the Stranger from Paradise flag at this point.
So they will only have to take on 2 of the fiends, is that correct?
Yes. Once they get into Topher, they will have a choice of which direction to go, and they will fight 2 of the 4 fiend refights, depending on the route they take.
And if you've never watched this before, Topher, the Temple of Fiends Revisited, is the final dungeon. So the first dungeon of the game is the Temple of Fiends. Hence, when you go back 2,000 years into the past, it is revisited. And with that, the gate has dropped, and we should be getting started any second here on screen. And then we'll have to see what's going on. And I will ask anyone in chat if you're listening in. I am the sole tracker while also commentating, so if I miss anything, please let me know in chat, and I will make sure to mark those off. I'll do my best, though.
Yes, and as we just take a moment to wait for the gate to drop, you will also notice that both of our runners are using customized sprites, and unfortunately, it looks like Darkmoon had a little bit of trouble with his, but it's fine.
Okay, so level 1, heal 3, not a bad sprite at all, or not a bad sprite, not a bad spell. Quake, also something that will get you through the early game.
Yeah. Quake is actually more useful than it is sometimes given credit for, since a lot of early enemies do have really low magic defense, and its chance to work is based on an enemy's magic defense. In the vanilla game, you get it so late and with so few charges that it's usually not worth taking because you're hitting just so much magic defense. But against something like imps, it's like, yeah, like you just, drop them in a hole.
Mm-hmm. 100%.
Looks like Darkmoon is also having a little bit of trouble deciding exactly what he wants to do with gear, whereas Elastoid is ready to make the ground shake and is just hitting the gas.
Yeah, so Elastoid choosing to open some chests here in the Temple of Fiends. A little bit unusual, but if you want some gold, that makes some sense. We do have no loose items, so there's guaranteed not to be any necessary progression here, but a Procade +2, a pretty nice pickup. Oh, and now I see what's going on with Darkmoon's sprites. It's a vampire sprite. Darkmoon, one of the biggest fans of Castlevania, probably on this planet, so not surprising here.
Yeah.
Elastoid going to take on Garland for the first time.
Yes, and viewers will also note that as per the rules of the tournament, if you use sprites that deviate wildly from the original Final Fantasy sprites, you are required to mark what job a given sprite is.
Yeah, so thanks to both these runners for, of course, following those rules, as it does make us it possible for us to know what's going on here as we see the fighter, the red mage, the black mage, because that black mage looks more like a white mage to me, so it's a good thing we got those marked.
Good old Sifa. Anyway, we get both our runners now have their canals and their slabs. And Elastoid going to take a brief nap and then go across the Bridge of Destiny.
Yeah, so
Darkmoon right behind.
We don't have a free ship, which is something. Yeah, there we go. Darkmoon checks the dock. No ship, which means we're taking the bridge. And of course, this doesn't mean that our runners are out of progression. It just means that we're either going to be getting the canoe or the ship from the pirates here.
Yes.
The canoe's a little bit more interesting. The ship would be just open up a lot of things. Probably go check Crescent Lake.
Darkmoon getting a nice long run here, going straight to the pirates. Checking level 2 magic, and it's Fox, Exfer, A-Rub, and Mute. Not useful to us. Meanwhile, Lit 3 and Nuke. Oh, all right. This is pretty much what you're looking for in any of these flags. A nice early nuke that'll allow your casters to sweep out almost everything.
It's a major advantage for Darkmoon's party with the early nuke, because having 2 nuke casters at the early levels is going to be very valuable. It's also going to be a better strategy for taking out fiends. The thief not being able to cast nuke is a pretty large downside.
Yeah. So, Elastoid has been ahead so far, but with, double nukes, Darkmoon absolutely has the ability to just pull ahead here. But Darkmoon remembering to actually get that ship, because you don't immediately get it when you defeat BK.
Very expensive houses, but okay tents.
And silver bracelets +3 for a pretty reasonable price. That's going to be a lot better for Darkmoon, because both the red mage and black mage will be relying on that as their primary defense going forward. Especially with the chain armor actually being cursed. And we should actually explain cursing here really fast in case we have any new viewers. So one of the flags in the randomizer is a flag that will put a blessing or curse on any piece of armor or weaponry. A plus makes that weapon generally better. It has a better chance to hit or dodge, and it has more attack or defense, and that's a Cure 3 at level 3 white magic.
Yeah,
and
continue.
Yeah, and a minus, of course, just makes those hit, /evade, and strength stats worse. So when we're dealing with, say, a -2 chain armor, that is actually significantly worse than it could otherwise be. Whereas in vanilla, a silver bracelet is about equivalent, but a +3 silver bracelet is going to be vastly superior to a -2 chain armor. So even the red mage, who can otherwise wear a decent spread of armor, is going to want that silver bracelet.
Mm-hmm. And also Cure 3 and Cure 4 actually at level 3 white magic, which is quite valuable. It's critically in the red mage learnable slot. Unfortunately, Exit is in white mage only. Life, on the other hand, though, will be you can get it once the red mage promotes to a red wizard. So that is a reason to promote. These flags have not seen a ton of promotion. It's definitely something you can do, but it's not as common because the Massa only requires a fighter rather than a knight.
Or rather, it requires anybody.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it requires anybody, but it's not like the Excalibur where you would want to promote to get access to that weapon. With the Massa, you can just stay as the fighter, and there's not a ton of other benefits other than better armor and potentially learning some spells for promoting. So you'll see often that these runners may just choose to skip the tail. Darkmoon also getting a critical piece of information there. The TNT was for sale in Elfland for, I think it was about 20,000, if anyone in chat wants to correct me.
Yeah. And Elastoid did not actually check that. Oh, and this is a nice, easy tile that's guarding the vanilla crown chest. This is the incentive location here in Marsh that has a ruby. So we can actually go check Sarda the Sage right now, and also I'm slightly surprised that Elastoid isn't opting to do a little bit of grinding here, because Mudgulls are not the hardest things to kill in this game.
Elastoid has a very different, because Elastoid only has a single nuke caster. It's actually quite risky to grind the Mudgulls because of the fact that you have limited nuke casts. If you had two, it makes a little bit more sense to stay. I'm also quite surprised that Elastoid's full clearing Marsh. There's only going to be the single incentive location, so clearing all these chests, unless... But Elastoid doesn't know that the shop items, so a little bit unusual, but nothing too crazy. Now, I do want to point out that Darkmoon, so Darkmoon's having sprite problems, which is why Darkmoon has, his character not in the front row. However, Bicky the Pirate, which is what shows up when you, it's actually the Ghost Pirate, is what shows up if you do not have a character in the front slot. You also lose all of your surprise bonus, which is actually awful because it makes it so that you're easier to be ambushed and harder for you to ambush them. So yeah, it's, Darkmoon's making sacrifices for aesthetics here,
and we appreciate it. But yeah, as far as Elastoid doing the full clear, I also want to point out that he would know that exit is locked and he doesn't have warp yet, so he's going to have a long hike back anyway. So you might as well just grab some stuff if you can down here.
I mean, yes and no. By grabbing some stuff while you're down there, it's good, but he almost wiped because of the extra encounters that he took because of taking those extra steps. And, Darkmoon's actually caught up even just by the virtue of going through it. And what did Elastoid get? A copper bracelet +4. Yeah, I think the nature of these flags is going to be, it's going to reward you for going fast. Looks like Darkmoon didn't buy Pures in Canaria either, which is why that was
and is probably regretting that right now.
So Canaria, the starting town, Pures, which are what heal poison, and Softs, which is what heal stoned, always available there. So very reliable.
Then Darkmoon now feeling very spooky. And we find the gold bracelets, which are equivalent to iron armors, but they're minus. That is a little bit of a... It's not a huge minus, but it's a bit of a bummer. And also, that TNT is 60k.
Oh yeah, okay, that was a lot more expensive than what I thought it was. Thanks to Hilm Cody for subscribing for 3 months in advance. Always appreciated for supporting SpeedGaming, which allows us to have tournaments like these.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a pretty easy TNT or Ruby turn-in. The reason is because the Ruby actually blocks 2 key item locations in this flag set: the Titan's Trove itself, as well as Sarda. So, not surprising to see them go there right away. Haste is actually fast. So Darkmoon uses a flag on the site that's called I can't remember the actual name of the flag, but it's essentially a flag that's designed to help names be easier to read for dyslexia, which is actually an awesome flag. It changes the starting letters more frequently, so you're not just seeing like lit, lock, etc., etc. So it's a really, really cool flag that Darkmoon kind of helped build out and design. So that's why you're seeing things like haste instead of fast. They all do the same spells. There's no advantage. It's just there to make it a little bit easier to parse those words.
I didn't actually know that that existed, and that's kind of rad.
Yeah.
And our developers have a tendency to do stuff like that. So much love to the FFR devs.
Yeah, it's called accessible spell names under quality of life on the website
Yes.
if you want to use it yourself.
And it also has the side effect of bringing some of the spell names closer to what they were in the game's sort of original Japanese form, and the spell names that are used more commonly today. So that's also a bonus. And it's also a ribbon and a key.
Yeah,
the ribbon being minus is kind of a bummer, but well, what can you do? But it doesn't affect things that much. You can only go to 0 on a given a given piece of armor's defense. A sufficiently cursed item cannot lower your defense, but it will have a lot more a much bigger evasion penalty than it usually would.
Yeah, it's still a -5. When I was first starting to play this game a few years ago, one of the more experienced runners told me that a -5 ribbon is still the best armor in the game, and that holds true to this day. The ribbon, if you haven't played the vanilla game, what it does is it gives you resistance to all elements, and critically that prevents you from getting insta-death from a number of spells. We've shuffled which enemies have what spells and skills, which means you don't really know who's going to have that at any given point. It's really, really nice to know that you're protected with, well, everything but a 3 in 256 chance. Gloomchew, I believe it's 1, but I might be wrong. You can Astral Esper's Guide, I think, may have that, or just our Discord, a more senior.
The ribbon does have 1 defense by default.
Oh, I mean, like with the minus, I think the minimum is still 1, not 0. Crown. Okay, so we pick up the crown, and the crown can be turned in at the Northwest Castle here. A little bit unfortunate when you don't have the canoe, as you really do have to go the long way around.
Yep. We can't dock here at the river, so we got to go all the way back to Elflift. I'm also noticing that the Darkmoon is not doing a lot of encounter manipulation. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah, Darkmoon's not a player who loves to like do a ton of encounter manipulation and things like that. It's, he would rather play the game a little bit more vanilla-y, but to each their own. Deciding to stop and check this for gold, I think. If you can pick up that TNT now, it's really, really nice as you're right in the area.
And a Cure 3 plus... all right, so another thing that these flags do... there are a number of weapons in the vanilla game that have spells or spell effects attached to them on use. And our fighter has now discovered what appears to be a Cure 3 staff. And so that's going to be pretty useful in a number of contexts. It can only be used in combat, but a Cure 3 staff is going to heal for a lot, and it never runs out of charges. And we find a house in the Canaria Armory.
Very surprising that Elastroid decided to check the Canaria Armory, maybe looking for money once again, but there is no loose items, and there was no incentive item there, so it was guaranteed that was just going to be random things. But Elastroid is clearing pretty thoroughly. Darkmoon picking up the herb, once again a very nice pickup in the Inner Sea. Just get to go right away and turn that in.
A very French vanilla herb pickup there. And Darkmoon is going to check the locked room in Northwest Castle. I actually don't hate this because it's a whole bunch of spike tiles that can potentially have some really nice grind spots, and also it is probably going to be a decent amount of loot.
Yeah, this check makes a little bit more sense. Ooh, especially when you find zombie Ds.
Oh yes. Now the loot wasn't great, although a -1 iron armor is not the worst thing in the universe that you can get for a fighter. And oh gosh, those are very small. Haven't been doing arm day zombie dragons there. Oh, that's a good grind spot if Darkmoon decides to just sit down for a little bit.
Yeah, these flags don't really reward grinding heavily. Fighter comps don't need it. You have an incentive Moss immune, so you don't really need it as badly. But
Well,
yeah,
it would be a little bit better for Dark Moon's composition because you do want a ton of nuke casts, especially when you have it right there at level 2, and you can get up to like 7 or 8 casts of level 2 spells reasonably fast.
just to answer Flying Circus Monkey's question in chat, I was just typing it out, but you can check out FinalFantasyRandomizer.com, or you can join our Discord, which is, I think there's a link that's possible to find. One of the commands here on SpeedGaming will bring it up, and you can join the Discord, and there's some instructions. We can help you with everything except for the initial copy of the ROM, which you'll, of course, need to have yourself.
Yes.
But after that, you can randomize it on FinalFantasyRandomizer.com and get access to all this cool stuff. And emulators, of course, are totally fine to use. Most people use BizHawk, but other people use all sorts of things.
Yeah. And Lastoid has now discovered the zombie dragons and how easy they are to grind. I will be very curious to see if he sticks around for this at all. No.
Housing up means yes, I think. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So the difference between a house, a tent, and a cabin is that tents and cabins are the same, except they heal different amounts of HP. So tents heal less than cabins. Houses, on the other hand, though, restore all of your spellcaster's magic charges, which is quite valuable.
It is essentially the equivalent of staying at an inn. And Darkmoon is now going to do the full plunder of original Temple of Fiends, and 2 of the treasure rooms here in Temple of Fiends are locked with the Mystic Key, which we now have.
Yeah,
and this also gets Darkmoon that pro cape, and is deciding to tank up the red mage as much as possible.
This is really making me think that Darkmoon really wants to buy the TNT before he leaves the Inner Sea.
And probably same with Elastoid. This is probably as much a money grind as it is a level grind. And
I do like Elastoid's way of doing it a little bit better though, because you're guaranteed to get money and you're also getting levels at the same time. Now there's so much still to check though. Well, I guess there's only really Crescent Lake at this point. The other incentive locations, Earth is not available, can't go to ice or deals, sea, sky without things. So the TNT is 50-50 at this point to be required, but this is a lot of time spent to potentially get the TNT when it might just be waiting for you in Crescent Lake. Oh, Deadpool was pointing out in chat, Crescent Lake is gated by the Lich Kill? Oh, my apologies. Okay, so then the TNT grind is 100% correct. That's so unusual.
It's a bit unusual in that usually flags allow for early checking of the Crescent Lakes Sages, which is where you get the canoe in vanilla. But in this flag set, we have the vanilla behavior of you must defeat Lich, the Fiend of Earth, in order to get the Circle of Sages to give you anything at all. And that is the way it's done in vanilla, and that means that we have an Earth dive in our runner's future. Unless this TNT comes up real big.
Yeah, just confirming with the flags. Sarda was available before turn into... interesting.
Meanwhile, Elastoid doing a little bit of work with the inventory there. And it looks like Darkmoon has decided, after having checked the other chest... What Darkmoon was doing was checking the other chest just to see if there was a huge payoff there somewhere. And it turns out that it's not. And so... Meanwhile, we get a bottle from the Prince of Elfland, and Darkmoon is heading into the fight with the zombie dragons for some cash.
Yeah, this is slightly better than what we've seen in some really bad races, where you have to grind the Peninsula Power, for example, for an early item. These zombie dragons give pretty good golden levels, but this is still going to take a little bit of time, and it's really, really benefiting people who have 2 nuke casters, right? Because you can stay in here a little bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
This is an interesting strategy by Elastoid. I actually kind of like this now that I understand why they're so adamant to get the TNT. Oh, that's a really bad pun. Going into the Dwarven Armory, these are quite a number of chests. And there we go. Oh, it's the canoe. Interesting.
Okay, so we don't immediately have to do Lich. We now have the volcano and the ice cave open, and I'll be curious to... Oh! And that is a Fire 2 sword. Okay. And 55 grand. Alright, sure.
So the canoe actually opens up a number of incentive locations. Not only does it open up ice, it also opens up ordeals, which is very, very interesting, as well as... let me double check. Okay, it does not open up waterfall, but it does open up ordeals. So because of that, that makes things very, very interesting.
Yeah, so like Elastoid has about 4 different directions that he can go in now, and Darkmoon will have several directions that he can go in as soon as he gets that 60k in hand. And unfortunately, he doesn't know that the armory, the Dwarf Armory, which he could access right now, does have the money he's looking for.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if some other runners chose to do that, but it is quite a hike. It's a little bit of a up and down type thing. But regardless, Darkmoon will be there soon. This is a very interesting seed. Because of the fact that these runners all kind of are forced to get a certain amount of levels up front, it's going to make the end of this very, very jetty.
Yeah. Oh, and Elastoid just got a certain bit of information in that Odd Eyes on the sea have Blizzard. That's not something you want to deal with too often. And it looks like Elastoid is going to do ordeals first.
So,
this is probably where a place where there could be a lot of divergence between the runners, not only the ones who are currently on camera, but a lot of the ones who are also like running this race but not being restreamed at this moment. Like there are 4 directions that you could go right now.
There's only 2, really. You can do ice or you can do ordeals. You're not going to a non-incentive location before you have the floater and the other locations like accessible doesn't make as much sense, especially because your levels are so good.
Well, I'm counting Lich as a incentive location because beating up Lich will get you a key item.
We can't go there without the rod, though.
Ah, this is true.
Yeah, so
I'm smart in keeping track of things.
Hey, I've been on double duty. That's the only reason I know what's going on. So the rod would be interesting. I think that's actually the reason why you want to go to ordeals before Ice Cave. First, ordeals without warp is a little bit painful, but ice without warp is a lot painful. Secondly, if this is the rod, then you actually want to beat Lich before you head over to Crescent Lake to go into Ice Cave. Because if you beat Lich first, then you're going to be able to get the item at the Sages and not have to double dip kind of the eastern part of the Inner Sea. So yeah.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Elastoid doing a little bit of inventory Tetris, put that Fire 2 sword up front, but also finds an Excalibur. Okay, and there's the floater.
Okay, now there's Divergence time. Also an Agama. But the floater, of course, is going to open up basically the remainder of the incentive locations. The ones that are still not available are the ones that are locked behind gating. Sea requires the Oxyale still, Sky requires both the cube and the chime, and Earth requires the rod. So those 3 are inaccessible, but we now have access to, of course we had ice before, but we also have access to waterfall. And
we can also check Gaia, remember, and we can set the ferry loose and see what the ferry has for us.
Yeah, the fetch quests are going to be almost immediate turn-ins. It would not be surprising at all to see Elastoid just...
J-Lo pointing out that Ordeals was the play to make here, because that opens up the entire scene.
Ordeals is always the right play. No, that's definitely not true, but I would definitely have selected Ordeals here, and I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of runners did the same.
Yeah. Which is to say, let's see what Darkmoon does once we get that TNT turned in. And at 2540, we have a an elastoid in the air. We are checking what the armor shops have for us. Magic shops. Fade at level 6. That's not great. These. Unfortunately, a lot of the damage spells are now kind of superfluous with Nuke being at level 2, since it's non-elemental and has such a high magic power that it will still do more damage than even like a Fire 2 or a Fire 3 striking a weakness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the order in spells is Ice 3 striking a weakness, then Nuke, then Fade. And Nuke is always better than Fade, so there's no reason if you have a red mage to pick up both unless you're concerned about spell levels.
Yeah. And meanwhile, Elastoid doing a little bit of counter manipulation before heading into Ice, which is always a good idea because Ice is usually quite nasty, especially when you're a bit short on good armor and other means of defending it yourself, like our runners are basically forced to be right now.
Ice before turning in Slab and Bottle is a little bit unusual, but not entirely unjustified. The fact is that we still need so many incentive locations, and we need the Oxale, we need the Rod. Ice is likely going to be required. The only true dud for Elastoid here would be, well, I guess none of them are true duds, but the ribbon or the tail here in Ice Cave would be less than ideal, but anything else, and this is a totally fine dive.
Yeah. Oh, and I see what's going on with these gargoyles. Now, those are gargoyles with Death Touch. What's good? Oh, no.
I don't really know why Elastoid is, I guess Elastoid is just checking the trap tile there.
Yeah.
No, but Elastoid's still opening all these boxes. It's so this is a type. Wow, that's a pretty good trap tile. This is a type of flag set that we call no loose. That means that there's the same amount of incentive locations as there are incentive items, and that means that you know where every single key item in the game is located. Now, there are 3 small exceptions to this. We know that the one in Earth Cave, Sea Shrine, and Sky Palace are in one of a select few chests, so it's not an exact, but everything else you know exactly where they are. That means that you could technically skip every other chest in the game and know that you're still able to win. So Elastoid has been kind of consistently selecting to open up a few extra boxes. This can pay off, but it's ultimately a pretty gamble-heavy strat. So we'll have to see. It's definitely costing him a lot of time and giving Darkmoon an opportunity to catch up.
I still don't hate it because I also feel like Elastoid is looking for a grind spot if it's required, which it isn't quite as much in this particular flag set because you mostly do walking grinds. But especially in a situation here, like where, if you get your fighter destroyed out of nowhere and they end up missing out on a fair bit of EXP, it can be helpful to know where to go to grind. And I would say that Elastoid has just found that spot, and that the spot right there with the consistent eyes in what is the undead room in vanilla is a pretty good spot to get your grind on. But it is also worth it because Elastoid finds the loot, and the loot is one of the key items we need to access the final boss.
Loot's actually a really nice pickup here. There's a lot of runners who might decide this also means that the bottle and the slab turn-in are going to lead to the rod or the oxale or something that opens up additional incentive locations. Lots of runners might last location this here. I've been noticing there's a lot of Link to the Past tournaments going on in SpeedGaming right now. I was watching some here earlier. This is kind of the equivalent of finding it on I don't know, Bombo's tablet or something like that. Not brutal, but it's not the most commonplace, and people checking it really early.
Yeah, and it could very easily be something that people fade.
Yes, 100%. Okay, so Darkmoon picking up his floater.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so BQ Curry is pointing out that getting loot later might have been faster, but we've seen levels 1 through 6 magic at this point, and I don't think we've seen warp, and exit is inaccessible, so it's not really going to be that much faster later.
We do have a situation here where the travel spells are largely inaccessible. Exit cannot be used in this seed. Straight up. There were no white mages in the draft pool, so you will never be able to use. You'll never be able to use exit at all. And a warp is apparently either level 7 or level 8, and you don't get those spell charges until very, very late. And a lot of the slots are promotion locked, so you have to assume that you're just not going to be doing any, warping at all. Like, there's a good chance you're not going to promote at all, just to, go faster and save time on making that trip. And thus, you have to do the whole seed with no exit and no warp.
Interesting. Darkmoon also selecting to do warp, or not to do warp, to do ice prior to turning in the bottle and the slab. This is also going to give Darkmoon an advantage over one of the 20 other runners that he is racing that's not currently on stream.
Mm-hmm. I also think, though, it might be a slightly natural play, because from where you get the airship, it's just directly north to go check ice, and you're in sort of the neighborhood, and so you can check ice for the incentive, and then although Volcano and Carry is not an incentive choice, it's just carried down here. Like, there's no actual item to get down here, but you can just pop up here real quick and knock out ice, knock out your first fiend. And by the way, that is Lastoid on the board here at about 32 minutes with fiend kill number 1. And it's just... It's a choice that flows kind of naturally from where you normally acquired the airship, and out of the fact that you haven't had to check ice yet. So I would be curious to see how many runners just sort of route that in naturally versus check somewhere else because they think it might be a higher value target. So no, the katana that we found is actually cursed.
So I think the character that currently has it equipped has a plus katana blessing.
Oh,
as in, it's able to equip the katana either prior to promotion or, normally it can't at all.
However, that is a pretty grody, -3 on the katana. It kind of hurts because the one other thing that a blessing or curse affects on a weapon is its crit rate. And the katana lives and dies by the amount of crits it can crank out. And so a -3 katana has a pretty steep penalty to crit. I think it's something like -2% per level of blessing or curse. So that's a katana that has -6% crit rate.
Yeah, it's not the worst because it still has such a high one. I mean, it's better than anything they have available right now, but a -3 katana is certainly not a better weapon than endgame Nasa here.
Yeah, and J-Lo pointing out that this is vanilla Oxyale. Was this even? Blam.
Are we getting a chime here?
And that's when Space Drake got shot. But anyway, yes, let's have a look. What are we getting from Lefane? Matoya's Crystal Eye. That's not vanilla.
Yeah, like Beef Curry pointing out correctly that I think it's actually 3% crit rate, so 1.5% crit percent per, and the 60% is slightly misleading. A crit rate is on a 1 to 201 or 1 to 200 scale, so it goes from essentially a 30% crit rate to a 20, -3%, 25.5% one. However, the bigger hit is the base damage. The katana has actually quite poor base damage compared to most of the endgame weapons. So the fact that it's lacking the extra damage is also critical, because the crit rate's basically a multiplier more than it adds base damage, right? So it hurts. It's still a good sword for this stage of the game. Let's not be mistaken. But it's not really what you were going to want to be swinging on.
It's still pretty grody. Like you probably could even take it into the final battle and do pretty well with it, but it doesn't feel great, and you're still looking for that Masamune and praying that it hasn't been cursed, because we haven't brought that up yet. Even the incentivized Masamune can be cursed. And oh, okay. Elastoid deciding to route Sea Shrine in on top of this waterfall check that he's in the neighborhood for.
This makes a lot of sense. This is just checking the waterfall, the incentive location. I might have done waterfall first to get the levels to take on Kraken in one dip here, but you're going to be checking both these locations, so you could argue that doing this first makes sense.
Yeah. Ooh, also, these gray sharks are made of beef. Oh dear.
These frost wolves have blizzard.
Oh dear.
The downside of not encounter manipulating in on the overworld. Beef curry, the bug where I think that had to do with status element touches or things like that. But to be honest, the vanilla game had so many bugs that I'm not even going to speak to it. Okay.
Oh, good gracious! I imagine Elastoid is very glad that Key came up so early now because we have an incentivized item in TFC.
It's actually guaranteed to be there because it's behind gating in Sea Shrine, so that just another way of basically changing the incentive chest in Sea Shrine. That's the only well, is the top one key locked as well? That's the most infamous. Yeah, that's the only key locked one here. So when it's behind gating, it's guaranteed to be in that location. Okay, this makes sense. If Elastoid's going to kill Kraken while on this dive right now anyways, then going to Sea Shrine before doing Waterfall is a fair enough play. I would still have preferred to do Waterfall first just to get like even one extra level, because Kraken's a little scary. But
yes, especially at these levels with this armor.
Yeah, this is winnable, but scary. Boss scaling is at 50 to 200%, which means Kraken has between 412 or 1600 HP.
1600 HP, yeah.
If we're in the 400 range, nukes will absolutely get the job done. If we're in the 1600 range, this is about to be very, very, very scary.
Yes. Especially if Kraken's strength or accuracy also happen to roll up, because then Kraken will just start reaching out and crushing people.
Okay. We got some divergence here. Darkmoon deciding to turn the crystal in first.
Yep.
Getting the cube.
Alright, so that means that the crystal is indeed required.
Oh, Kraken hitting like a little baby though. That
Kraken got rolled down. All right, this is not that scary at this point.
I mean, it's still a little scary, but
I apparently just commentator cursed Elastoid here, but
okay.
I
think Elastoid needs to start using Ruse here.
Yeah.
Here I mean last turn, but this could still be a win. No, that's that's a rough wipe for Elastoid, and this is kind of what we were referring to, like hitting up Waterfall there first to get some levels, which is what Elastoid's going to do now, and then
Darkmoon is also doing first.
Yeah, and then maybe casting Ruse earlier. It looks like the Knight has some amount of white magic, because I swear I saw the Knight having Ruse, but maybe it was the Red Mage with Ruse. Regardless, getting some evasion up on this Kraken's going to be important to survive, as it also clearly rolled on the like vanilla or higher stat line. Okay, Darkmoon and Elastoid basically neck and neck. Elastoid with the wipe is just a crystal turn in behind Darkmoon at this point, which is less than a minute.
Which is that's very trivial. Meanwhile, Darkmoon rounding the bend and got a level off of that Gas Dragon.
Gas Dragon, one of the highest EXP enemies in the game. Always tasty to snack on. Darkmoon's still opening some boxes. Boxes are friends, but sometimes also enemies.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I would imagine that Darkmoon is looking for, probably not that tail, but is looking for additional houses, and also probably like a steel armor or an opal bracelet or something like that. Another really good piece of armor that hasn't rolled badly. Because a lot of the armor in this seed has rolled pretty cursed. I've been a little surprised, and I'm sort of dreading what the Masamune is going to look like once we find it. So
this means that the rod is guaranteed to be in Sky, somewhere between
Yes.
Sky 1 and 3, like the Sky Palace, so after you go through the Q block. And that means that Earth 4 is going to contain the Masa or the Ribbon, and then Crescent Lake contains the other one. Welcome, SpeedGaming 5, to Final Fantasy Randomizer's SpeedGaming Live Qualifier number 6. My name's Jack. I'm joined here in the booth by Space Drake, and this
Hello.
is one of 9 qualifiers that these runners are racing in to get seeded to participate in the SpeedGaming Live Final Fantasy Randomizer tournament. They only need to take part in a minimum of 3, but you can run as many as you want trying to get faster times, as basically your points are equal to your sum of all your times put together, and lower is better. What you're watching right now is 2 runners who are pretty close to Go Mode. So Go Mode in this game is going to involve having the Chime, the Cube, the Oxtail, and the Rod, so the 4 items on the far right of the tracker, and then the Key and the Loot, which are located kind of to the right of the watery things, below the crown. So,
And meanwhile, Lassoid has discovered that the Paralisks in this seed have the Medusa Stone Gaze.
like Stone Touch or like Stone
Gaze.
Poison?
They have glance.
Oh, they have glance. They have glance. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot
dear.
of ways to get a stone element applied to you, or stone status.
But Elastoid has gotten out cleanly and is getting ready for round 2 with the big squid.
Okay, yeah, so Dark Moon realizing that the sacrifice for aesthetics could only go on so long, the odds of getting ambushed by like ghosts and various other awful things here is just too high, so did put the fighter into that first slot, but as you can see, it's causing a visual glitch here. This is just because of the sprite set that he's using. It has no gameplay impact, but it is, of course, rather annoying, so that's why he's been putting the Ghost Pirate in the front slot.
Yeah. Specifically, he seems to have messed up the palletting of the fighter sprite there somehow, and it didn't import cleanly into the game when he put the sprite sheet into the randomizer, which is now a feature of the randomizer. If you have a properly prepared sprite sheet, you can import a customized set of hero sprites into any seed that you want to run. There is more information and instructions for how to do this in the creativity channel of the Final Fantasy Randomizer Discord.
Okay, these 2 runners neck and neck. So, once you're getting close to the end of the game, there's a couple things you need to consider, which is, 1, what items do I need to do? Like, what's the bare minimum amount of things I need to do in order to get to the end of the game? And then second question is, what do I need to do beyond that to make sure that I can win? And with Short Temple of Fiends Revisited, the fact that the Masa and the Ribbon are going to be more or less on the way, like, I wouldn't say going to Crescent Lake with the floater or just clearing Earth 4 to get the Masa is, like, egregious or anything. This all leads to it being not a whole heck of a lot else. These runners might want to get a few more levels, but they're honestly in pretty decent shape level-wise. And then they're just going to want to pick up that Ribbon and that Masa, and then they're going to be good to go. So.
And this is basically going to be a 2-ribbon party, which is going to be really nice for things like the Fiendry fights and Chaos, because you'll be protected against most of the nonsense they can do. Oh, and there's a transfer hammer there in the mini treasury. That could be kind of interesting for a few of these fights, because what Exfer or Transfer does is it removes all elemental defenses from a target. In the original version of the game, this only worked on the player. It didn't work on enemies. But one of the bugs that has been fixed in the randomizer is that Transfer does work on all targets now. Okay,
Elastoid on to round 2 against Kraken. Fight basically going as last time, except this time we are rusing up this red mage. So.
Yes, indeed. And the physical fighter's not doing too much. And rip to that thief.
Okay, so the key thing about getting these 3 stacks of Ruse up, which is going to make this red mage have maximum evasion, is that even if our fighter goes down, as long as this red mage has some way to do damage to Kraken, whether that's enough nuke cast or like a fire 3-stick or something along those lines, we will be able to take this fiend down slowly, especially because this Kraken seems to be very punch heavy. Okay, so the only thing that's going to hit this red mage on the last droid screen now is going to be a crit, but not a problem. Last Droid gets through, and Dark Moon through at the same time. So
yeah, Dark Moon just getting through with the almighty power of Unga Bunga and 2 nukes every single turn.
Yeah, once again, the downside of the Thief in the party compared to the second Blackcaster is that 2 nukes is a lot better than 1 nuke, it turns out. And this Thief has done basically nothing other than run for most of the seed for
I think Elastoid was hoping to get more value out of the Thief, but the comparatively early airship and a few other things has lowered the value of the Thief, and both runners now opting to promote.
Mm-hmm. So once again, not something that we see all the time, but Elastoid has an X-Cal and a Flame Armor. Dark Moon may want to pick up some other things, so not all that surprising. It does just cost you some time, but you definitely get an increase in safety. Oh, also life. Sorry, this makes a lot of sense. Life for the red mage is available too.
Yes, indeed, and it makes that Thief actually like useful, because the Thief can now use the katana, and the Knight can use that X-Cal, and so now you have 2 credible physical fighters, and the only thing we're really lacking is fast/haste in order to send their hit counts through the roof.
Yeah, so that was, I believe haste was at level 5, right?
Yes.
So
possibly level 4. We'll have to see.
Yeah, so
and then we get life 2, and I presume that Elastoid's gonna pick the other 2 nerds up immediately, and we're gonna be off to. Oh, no, going to make sure. There is one other thing, because as it turns out, guess who else has a cure caster and also a nuke caster now?
Ah, yes. Now the downside of this is that you don't start gaining spell charges until every other level past 15, so it's going to take a little bit of time for Elastoid to be able to take advantage of that. But this is nice routing of the crystal. Also, I totally forgot, but Elastoid's killed Carry, and Dark Moon hasn't, so these runners are actually quite close together.
Yes, indeed.
Ooh, that's not good for Dark Moon.
Yeah, no, the double Bane Manticores are kind of nasty. We might need to start considering putting that. Did Dark Moon forget to pick up that life too?
Yeah. I was gonna say this reminds me of something that a very good runner of this game once told me when I was learning, which is Crabcakes told me, once you promote, just go buy your spells because you never know when you're going to need them. Now, this isn't always true, of course, and if you don't think you're going to need it, but like picking up life after promotion, for example, can be a very, very good insurance policy. And you know, that's something that Elastoid did and Dark Moon didn't, and that could really end up biting Dark Moon in the butt here.
Yes, although Elastoid is going to need to get a few more spell charges for his melee folks, he can use that life too right now, and that red mage with the ribbon is incredibly safe.
Yes.
And even the Vorpal sword is extremely cursed. That never feels good. So the Vorpal sword is basically a katana-like weapon that just about anybody can use. Well, not just about anybody, but especially in a promoted situation like this, any real melee character, aside from the black belts, can use it and become a crit machine. But it is very cursed, and that is going to hit it even harder than the katana, because the Vorpal does not have a very high base attack. And so losing -6 attack on the Vorpal is agonizing. Oh, geez. And speaking of not having life too, those green Medusas have the death glare on them, and that's not very tasty.
No, that is not good at all. And once again, Darkmoon really paying the price here for not having access to life here. Because remember, this red
Yeah.
mage would be able to cast life right now.
Yeah.
All that talk about spell charges doesn't apply because the red mage has been gaining spell charges since level 1.
Yes. Meanwhile, we are opening boxes here in Sky Palace because with the flag set that we have, the incentive item for Sky can be anywhere on these first 3 levels.
Of the first 3 levels of the palace.
Yes.
Not wrong, but yes. Darkmoon really paying the price here for putting this Bicky sprite in slot 1. It's very unfortunate he's having some sprite difficulties, but getting ambushed and things like this is not ideal for gameplay.
Not at all. And meanwhile, Elastoid is basically just ripping through this Sky Palace at this point. And not... Oh, all right. So
I kind of like this play.
Yeah, like there is a higher density of chests here on the 3rd floor, and they're also a pain in the butt to get to. So if you can find the item here on the 3rd floor, you can just head straight to the straight to the boss Tiamat. And I like switching to that dragon armor -1 because it's still minus, but -1 isn't too bad. And dragon armor gives you resistance to fire, ice, and lightning. Yeah. And so that is going to be a pretty tough fighter at this point.
You're not quite so upset when you have, 40 armor instead of 42 when your dragon armor is giving you so many resistances. That is a terrifying fight for Darkmoon.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Bane. Yeah, this is going to probably... Oh, no, managed to get away. Meanwhile, Manticores are also doing Manticore things at Elastoid, but Elastoid doesn't care as much. Especially not when you also have that Ice 3... that Ice 3 gauntlet that you can use. And, yeah, the Red Mage is not really in danger here unless... these spell-heavy Manticores also somehow have nuke on them, but they don't. We managed to get away, and what would be a huge problem for Darkmoon is just a mild annoyance for Elastoid, although I imagine he doesn't want to run into quad Bane casting Manticores again if it can be avoided.
I see what Darkmoon did there. Okay, I thought Darkmoon mouse slipped essentially, but I think he meant to restart once he figured out where the item was, to make sure that he had his whole party up. So now on this next dive, Darkmoon only needs to check that one chest, and then it can just go straight to Tiamat.
Yeah.
So the rod is in what I call the last location box in Sky, because it's in the bottom right of the spider floor, which is just a terrible spot. For most people's default route, you can do that almost last.
Yeah. And Beef Curry, Bane is what is commonly called poison element, which, funnily enough, is also the element that is usually used for stone status effects. It's worth noting that a lot of there's the rod on level 2, and it's worth noting that a number of the sort of status effect, the status elements in Final Fantasy 1 don't have formal names. We know that they exist because the ROM has been taken apart for many years now, and we know that there are 8 sort of status flags, and one of them very clearly corresponds to all the to all instances of fire or all instances of ice. And there is one flag which is consistently used for poison and stone, and so we usually refer to that as the poison element.
The Aegis Shield is one of the only things in the game that resists it, actually, which is interesting.
Yes, which is also, and also, of course, the ribbon resists all 8 of these of these elements.
Yeah, save versus poison, exactly. No, this game is not based on D&D whatsoever. Please do not see the beholders behind the eyes.
Oh, no. Anyway, we are into the fight with Tiamat, and we are out of the fight with Tiamat. Blink and you miss it, and Elastoid is just marching onward, ever onward to a victory of some sort here. But
so
Darkmoon is right behind.
Elastoid about one fiend ahead, just because Darkmoon wipes so many times here in Sky.
Yeah, no, the wipes in Sky here really cost Darkmoon, and you gotta remember to go pick up those spells when you promote.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense because this is more on the way than going to get the spells, but the cost of a wipe, it's always cost benefit analysis here, and Darkmoon might have thought that he was safe, and unfortunately the game said otherwise, and that's not strictly just an incorrect call, it's just sometimes the game says no.
Sometimes the game says that Manticores will be spell heavy and open with Bane.
Yep. Whew, those are Tyros off the power cycle.
Yes, that is. But Darkmoon does not feel the need to grind too much more, and is also picking up one of those silver bracelets I was talking about a while back. And I would imagine that, that was Elastoid picking that up, and I would imagine that Elastoid is feeling pretty confident, like gear and spell-wise at this point. You've got the Cure 4 on the Knight, you've got the Nuke on the Ninja now, your Red Mage is pretty much completely kitted out, and this is not going to slow down Elastoid much at all, and you've got the loot and the key, and yeah, Elastoid is basically in go mode at this point.
Elastoid basically in go mode. Elastoid is in go mode, but maybe Elastoid wants a sword. We'll have to see if Elastoid decides to go open some boxes.
The -1 X-Cal isn't awful, and you've also got that transfer hammer that can remove the resistances off of chaos, and that will allow the it probably won't allow the X-Cal to hit all that much harder, but you would be able to use things like the Ice 3 Gauntlet if it comes down to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the X-Cal strats, but yeah, we'll see. Okay, so Elastoid isn't having a minus on weapons making Black Belt imbalance much worse. So, truth be told, generally speaking, blessed and cursed weapons make fighters stronger, because the fact is you get to choose which weapon you use. And yes, it sucks if all the endgame weapons roll down, but usually a few of them will roll up. And it also, like, almost any weapon +5, well, not any, almost any weapon, but a lot of weapons +5 will be valid endgame weapons. So it actually increases the number of potential endgame weapons from like 3 down up to like 6 or 7.
Yes.
Okay, Elastoid is choosing to check a couple boxes here though.
Yes, and we also happen to have an Elastoid in chat.
Ooh,
yep.
Okay.
There's the other ribbon. So that's
the incentive ribbon. You could see that the game paused for a second, which is the jingle playing. That's another nice quality of life improvement from our developers to identify when you've got an incentive quote-unquote item versus a non. There's 3 ribbons in this game, and sometimes if there's like loose stuff, you don't know when you find the incentive ribbon versus just a random one. So it's nice to know there for Elastoid that was indeed the incentive ribbon, and we can stop clearing chests.
We can just like hit the jets once again.
Yeah, Lich. I said Kraken was a little scary. Lich, not so much. Lich should be okay here.
Oh yeah, Lich is generally the least scary of the 4 in initial fiend fights, and when you're doing it with like an X-Cal that gets the bonus damage, and you've got a freaking katana and whatnot with like level 20+ warriors, like Lich is barely a speed bump. And so, with that, we'll have to see if Elastoid remembers to go get haste. It appears... Yep.
Yeah, picking up fast here makes a lot of sense. Hate, who was a runner in this race, cursing the rod. The rod, yeah, it was in a pretty bad spot in Sky, but most people probably are last locationing that, so...
Mm-hmm.
Not the end of the world. Yeah, so Elastoid picking up the Masa here, from which this is guaranteed to be the Adamant, so the Adamant turning into a frankly better sword here rather than the X-Cal. It's going to be turning into
we
the
will
Masa.
have to see whether or not the Masa got cursed, though. If the Masa somehow got its maximum minus, which I believe is -3 in this flag set, the Excal might be slightly superior.
So Massa -3 will have 6.5% crit. Excal -1 will still only have 3.5%, so that's pretty bad either way. The fact that we don't have Temper, though, is going to make... Wow.
It did. Ouch.
The fact that we don't have Temper makes it likely that I would just take the Masa. But... it's not good. Swords are in a rough spot here.
Yeah. Also, just viewers, it is not common to have every single... it's not just the in-game weapons. It feels like every single... major piece of gear has been cursed this entire run. This is a very cursed seed.
Yeah. Okay, so Elastoid picking correctly here, going down the side with Lich. That's always nice. Lich is a pretty big cakewalk, and in this case, a very big cakewalk. 500 HP, vanilla, 250 to 1,000 here. And Lich carry, wow. People who went left celebrating. It's not uncommon for people in short Topher to sometimes reset if they see Tia as the first boss, but still, this is the way you want to go, and down goes carry and Elastoid onto the big man himself. Chaos could give some issues here. Once again, 50 to 200%. This Chaos could have upwards of 4,000 HP, so we'll have to have a plan here.
Yeah, so putting the ribbons on our physical fighters. Since we only really are using the red mage for a fast spot. And first round is rub and does nothing. Gonna do a little bit more fast spam. A Chaos not swinging for a whole lot. 10 hits for 63 damage. You hate to see it. The power of that extremely cursed katana at work again. Nuke. Bane going out. Poison smokes the red mage.
Both of our melee characters staying alive there is pretty nice. Thief surviving just based off
the power of that ribbon at work. 10 hits for 50 damage. Ouch. 148.
Oh yeah, no, Elastoid's right. He has 2 ribbons. Darkmoon only has a single one.
Yes. Swirl comes out, doesn't do a lot of damage, despite the fact that actually that's technically not elemental. And down goes the ninja. So we are just left with the fighter holding A and praying with an occasional Cure 4, but 320 damage will get the job done. And with an official race time.gg time of, let me take a look at this, of 103.42. That is Elastoid finishing first on stream and in 10th place overall.
So just barely cracking into top half there for Elastoid, but nice job. This was definitely these flags generally run pretty quick. So these not a bad seed, but a little bit on the longer end just because of the rod being so late.
And everything relevant being cursed. And just for our audience, in first place was Crab Cakes with a time of 53.44. Spellzap came in number 2 at 55.09. Burt Reynolds at number 3 at 56.53. Cheesinator came in 4th with 57.09. Pickles and Beer came in 5th with 59.10. Devious RNG was 6th with 59.28. Ganon's Gone Wild came in 7th at 1 hour 55 seconds. Guardian Marcus was in 8th with 101.29. And Selin Simp came in at 9th with 103.06. And then, well, we'll just have to see.
Okay, Darkmoon moving the Black Mage into slot 1. Good levels here. The fighter's still wielding the katana, so Darkmoon not about that masa. This could be a little bit slow.
Well, it's all going to depend on how the nukes roll, more or less.
True. You could definitely nuke your way through Chaos, especially if it rolls down a little bit. And Chaos doesn't seem to have a ton of HP here. Yeah, that was a very, very nice katana hit there, considering it's -3.
Mm-hmm. And also, Rub doesn't have that high a chance to work in general, so a bit of an unlucky Rub hit there. Red Mage doing the Cure 4 stuff.
These Cure 4 casts on both party members, very, very valuable.
Mm-hmm. And then using that Cure 3 staff is also pretty good. That thing finally coming into relevance here at the sort of hour and 6 minute mark. And all right, so with a racetime.gg time of 1:06:25, Darkmoon EX has finished in 12th place, and just ahead of it, 4 seconds ahead of him, there was Dusk Plume in 11th with 1:05:21.
Yeah, so once again, the finished position here, not as important as the finish time is. Their qualifying time is going to be the sum of those. But
yes.
GG's to Darkmoon, and I think we are joined here in the booth with Darkmoon. Darkmoon, can you hear us? And hey, how's it going? GG's.
I can hear you. Hey,
Hello.
Thank you. I don't know. I flubbed a couple things that I wasn't pleased with, but
what were they?
I don't know. Okay, so that gamble to get the TNT paid off because the canoe was there behind TNT, which was great.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a thing of, do I go and I raid Dwarf Treasury and see if I can get the money for the TNT and double dip it, or do I try and check every place else and then just resign myself to fighting zombie bees to get the money that way? Which they got me levels, and that was fine, but I feel like I lost time there in the end.
Yeah, you and Elastoid were pretty close, I think. I don't know, it's hard to say. I think checking Toph Locked, for example, before checking Dwarven Armory might have been incorrect, just because the density there isn't there compared to if you're going to go there, you might as well just check Dwarf Lock. But otherwise, I would say it's totally reasonable.
I had hoped that there would have also been a better grind tile in the zombie bees at Toph Lock. It was a gamble. That was a gamble. I wasn't proud of that one, but I gambled on it, you know. And opening up Dwarf Treasury and seeing over 55 grand in one chest, I was going, well, that's TNT money.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wonder how many people actually did check Dwarf Lock though, because I don't know what I would have done. Just and you know, it was guaranteed that that TNT was necessary there. I actually made the mistake because I forgot about the non-early sages being off, which is quite unusual. But yeah. DVS saying red Ds and hollow giants. To be honest, the zombie Ds were squishy as all heck, and if you had 2 nuke casters and decent levels, you could definitely take it down with basically a house. But I think there was lots of different ways to get the TNT. Let's talk about Sky Darkmoon.
Well, let's also loop Elastoid in on that conversation, because we are joined by Elastoid. GG.
Yeah, thank you. That was an
rude.
interesting one.
So what I'm wondering, Elastoid, is since you were running more melee heavy, how far did your heart sink down when you saw that the katana, the Vorpal, the Excal, and the Masa all rolled cursed, and in multiple cases rolled maximum cursed allowed by the seed?
I didn't find the Vorpal, although that probably would have made me sad too. I don't know, when I found the Masmune was -3, I was real annoyed because I took the time to go get it, and then I was so annoyed that I forgot to grab Saber for the ninja, which I did regret, because that could have made the chaos fight a little faster. Ultimately, I feel like I spent a lot of time grinding those zombie Ds, just trying to get enough gold to get the TNT.
Yeah.
You know.
So you did that too. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I felt like the route was fine, but then, you run into the eyes and you go, oh, I could have grind
around the eyes, yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that, felt right at the time, but then when you see what the result is, you go, oh, well, that's just all, not optimal anymore. So
Yep.
That was the zombie degrind. When the eyes were there, it was. I probably should have brought a black mage. I don't know where warp wound up, but I didn't get it, and I
It was
never saw
apparently
it.
at level 8.
is it level 8? I don't know.
Yep.
You know, I suspected that someone had access to it. You know, anybody who put off Ice Cave until they had it, because you got the loot there, so they could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that felt like it made sense and then didn't. You know, but definitely like the fighter was plus 40 strength. I'm not sure if y'all saw that, but the fighter rolled plus 40.
Yeah.
So I wasn't worried I wouldn't have enough damage. You know, even with Xcal like -1, I was like, fast will be enough. You know, even with that ridiculous chaos, it was enough. So it was just, it was a drag that it went that way. I wound up pulling more chests than maybe I should have, but you know, whatever, it is what it is, right?
Yeah. And meanwhile, I think Jat is dying to ask about the Sky Palace that was filled with manticores and poisonous gas.
Oh man, that Sky Palace, it could bite me. It actually didn't bite me because I had the ribbon on the red wizard, and I was lucky. Like I grabbed the life 2 before I went in there. I was more upset with Kraken rolling all that absorb and all of that evade and managing to wipe. You don't expect to wipe to Kraken when you've got those levels and you've got the nuke and the weapons that you have. That was a drag, but I was worried about running out of life 2 charges because they would not stop showing up.
Yep.
And I was trying to preserve nuke charges because I didn't know what else I was going to run into, so it's a drag.
Yeah, and meanwhile, Dark Moon did not have life 2 going in there.
Nope, I took the gamble on Black Magic and assuming that my red mage would get something useful, and he had haste and nuke.
Yeah,
so, you know, I dove, and when I saw like glare off of the Magurmedusas and Bane off of those manticores, at a certain point I'm like, okay, let's try and figure out where the chest is so I can reach that, get to that one chest, and pray I get out with my life. And I did, but ooh, that was close.
Yeah, I didn't see glare, though. You know, I would have been. I didn't see glare, though. I would have been all right with it. I had a ribbon. Did you have a ribbon when you went in?
I did. It was on my red mage, just because I wanted to make sure that someone that could AOE would be able to do it, and I just hoped that the fighter would stay up. I don't like if both my casters went down. I wasn't making it very far in that dungeon anyway with the giant size of those packs, and my guy just swinging a katana. So I was just like, let's keep it on the red mage and see if I can at least pray to get through.
Well, I mean, you got through, so GG. It looks like our strategy of grinding those. Yeah, that was the other thing. We grind the zombie Ds, right? And then it turns out that, like, because I didn't want to double dip it or like check the dwarf treasury and then go back, but it turns out the dwarf treasury has that 50k chest. And I'm like, well.
Yep.
Like, apparently that was the strat.
I had that same thing. Yeah, if you did that, you wouldn't have the levels, but you would easily have the money. Or like, so it was one of those things of I can see where people probably were like they just went somewhere else and did like a walk-in grind or something and got the levels they needed. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm glad I have the levels, but I gotta think I lost like 5 minutes on that doing it that way.
Yeah, I mean, there's the god route. I imagine would be to grab the gold there and use it to purchase the TNT and double dip there. And then, you know, when it comes to if you need to grind levels, there's that eye grind that you're going to run into.
Yep.
So it's, I don't know, especially like the later you put off Ice Cave, the better that trap tile is going to be because you'll have more key items. So it doesn't surprise me that people are beating me by over 10 minutes.
Yep.
Right, I think our route, like, it sounds like we took sort of the same route. I think it was a smart route, but it just did not line up with where everything was.
Yeah, it didn't pay off this time. If that 50k chest hadn't been in Dwarf, that would be a different story.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, you, especially Dark Moon, were clearly, like, checking for a big, like, money chest. Like, we could very clearly see that you were doing that in the inner sea region, and the big money chest was right next to the TNT turn-in, and like you were hoping that the big money would be somewhere else, right?
Very far away, or at least on the Circle C where I checked. Like, either not there at all, or in the places I checked so that I'm on even footing with everyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's exactly
Jack, they're
right.
kind of asking all the questions we were going to ask. Do you have anything else to ask?
No, that pretty much covers it. I think, I don't think there's much else to say. I definitely think a little bit of routing, a little bit of execution, and a couple, both you guys took kind of a few, or Alaster took one expensive wipe in C, and Darkman took a couple in Sky. I think those were kind of the differences in the times, but...
And I need to get my spreadsheet working, so I don't have to keep screwing around with it so you guys can watch what I'm doing.
Yeah, and also so you don't have zero. I knew that you knew that you were getting, like, you were screwing up your ambush chances, but I knew why you were doing it, but that was very unfortunate. So,
I went for the fact that if I hadn't been on stream, I would have just, like, eaten it and just been like, okay, I'm grayed out here, but I can see where I'm going. But because I was on stream, I played up for the actual on-stream factor of it, just so you guys could actually watch and not be blinded by the hideousness.
We appreciate it, but it definitely seemed to hurt a little bit.
It did. It cut back on my luck chances a little. It cut back on some of the other things that I was doing. It sucked, but I ate it for this specific thing. Yeah.
I also, a lot of runners were mentioning after the fact that, like, this was a pretty slow seed by these standards, so, like, a lot of these times won't be used for the qualifiers if people can take on extra time. So, an interesting race again. But ultimately, not the best one for, I think, honestly, probably any runner except for the people who are, like, really leaving it to the last minute. I think
the people that had DNFs, they're gonna definitely upgrade off of this one. Everyone else, though, is like, this is a high time for them, so they'll probably do, like, better as the race another time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And speaking of which, we have a bunch more times to report with Darkmoon finished. So Chadbert came in with a time of 1:09:24. Hate 13 came in at 1:09:51. Life Reboot came in at 1:11:25, and Akir came in at 1:12:10. And as of this moment, Magius is actually still trying to get through the seed with a current race time of about 1:28:50. And both Chanigan, Papa Ducks, and Aaron 2U2 forfeited the race.
Well, I mean, credit to Magius for keeping going. I believe in finishing seeds out generally, unless I'm full of rage. So,
well, this was a seed that could definitely induce some rage, I think.
Absolutely. Like, I was mulling over possible, like, 2-man strats with just, like, fighter black mage or something like that. Having no life 2 would have been a drag in this seed. So, it's not hard to pick a party that will not go well.
I like my party, generally speaking. The brawler up front plus red mage, black mage. Like, it's a gamble, and it doesn't always pay off, but it's the party I started running in spring tournament, and while these are faster than spring tournament, the same kind of ideas apply to why this party works. Especially the fighter, when you can get him instead of the black belt on these, because you just, like, with a guaranteed Maza, or just happening to luck into a different weapon that's as good from a greed chest, you don't really need to grind your black belt. So, like, fighter, dead, 2 mages is a great party for these flags. I really enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it didn't quite work this time around, but that was more just routing choices than anything else.
Well, when I saw Nuke level 2, I was like, I should have taken 2 mages. The people who took 2 mages are going to smoke me. And they probably, like, coming in 10th, I'm like, yeah, they probably did, Yeah,
and when I saw Life 2 and I think Heal 3 at the same level, Red Mage locked out, I was sitting there going, well, that White Mage would be a little nice right now, I'm just saying.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, you take the hit so you can get the extra experience dumped onto your other characters.
Oh, yeah. And Exit was White Mage only as well.
Yep, which I saw didn't see Warp, but hearing it's level 8, I was never going to see Warp.
Yeah, we're never going to check level 8.
Yeah, never going to see it. If it's level 7 or level 8, I don't even check it, because it just takes too long for me to walk. So, Unrack already has enough walking. I don't need to walk to its shops.
And also, with a official racetime.gg time of 1:30:005, Magius has finished their race, and that brings today's race to a close.
Awesome. So I think with that, we can head into some final thoughts here. Darkmoon, any kind of final thoughts? I know we've kind of chatted about most of the seed already.
No, I'm enjoying this. I'm glad I'm getting the practice, and this was actually, I mean, despite the fact that this seed was slow, this was a decent time for me, better than my first one in these, which was also my first qualifier that I actually raced in. So, practice makes perfect. I'm getting better. I did a couple practices before this, and I made some stupid mistakes, trying to go to stages when you didn't have Lich defeated, not having the ship and canal in your inventory when the last two checks are ice and marsh, so you go and check ice and marsh and find the ship and canal that you didn't need because you're already in the air. Like, dumb stuff like that. And doing those at least it's helping to bring my time down. There's still some improvements I can do, but if this ends up being the high point for my times on a slow seed like this, I'm going to take it.
Awesome. And Elastoid, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys for doing the commentary. Thank Space Drake for tracking. Hello.
That was all
commentating
Jack.
as well. I can hear your voice. Okay. Yeah. Thank you to you guys for doing all that. And thanks to SG Live or SG for throwing SG Live. This is a cool tournament. It's the only time that I play FFR anymore is for this tournament. So I get to dip into this game again once a year, and I'm glad for the opportunity to do that. So yeah, just thank y'all, and I'll throw it to you to close it out.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to thank Space Drake for doing co-coms with me, myself for doing some tracking, and of course SpeedGaming for hosting us tonight. And thanks to both our runners, Darkmoon and Elastoid. And I'll pass it over to Space Drake too.
Yeah, and thank you, Jat, for simultaneously doing the tracking and commentary. That's not too easy to do. And thank you again to SpeedGaming for hosting our races and setting up our streaming. And we have 3 more days of qualifiers coming in, and because Danny is a chaos elemental, the next couple of race days, specifically the ones on tomorrow on the 18th and on the 21st, are going to be open to pretty much everyone in the community who wants to run those seeds, and they don't necessarily have to be trying to qualify for SG Live, but they are going to be the weekly seeds, and so expect a lot of people running those seeds over the next couple of days. Yep, so we will be running another race tomorrow, so if you have enjoyed the action here on SpeedGaming with Final Fantasy Randomizer, you can catch more of it tomorrow. And until then, this is Space Drake along with Jet 2980, and we are signing off.